They didn't censor the truth, they buried it in plain sight. Because in modern America, power rarely works by silence anymore. It works by noise, by releasing just enough information to claim transparency, while designing that release so the public can't actually see what matters. And the latest battle over the Epstein disclosures isn't really about one document, one name, or one scandal. It's about whether the American system still knows the difference between accountability and performance. If you're waiting for a single explosive revelation to end this story, you're misunderstanding how power operates today. The real story isn't what was said, it's how it was released. And more importantly, what still hasn't been released at all. Here's what happened in plain terms. A new batch of Epstein-related records surfaced amid claims of transparency. Large volumes of documents appeared, disappeared, and then reappeared in altered form. Files were reposted with different numbering, forcing anyone who had already downloaded or referenced them to start over. Meanwhile, the most emotionally charged material raced through social media, while the most consequential material remained out of reach. That combination is not accidental. It's strategic. Because confusion is not a side effect of modern governance, it's a tool. What the public was given looks like openness. Thousands of pages, dense records, black bars everywhere. But openness isn't measured by volume, it's measured by usability. And what people received was not a map to the truth, it was a maze. When documents are released without a stable structure, without consistent identifiers, without a clear index explaining what relates to what, accountability becomes nearly impossible. Journalists can't cite reliably. Researchers can't cross-reference confidently. Viewers can't tell which claims are solid and which are speculation. And in that fog, power stays exactly where it is. This is the first uncomfortable truth most coverage avoids. Transparency that cannot be navigated is not transparency at all. It is theater. And once you understand that, the focus shifts away from sensational details and toward something far more disturbing, the system's priorities. The loudest demands coming from lawmakers and advocates haven't been for shocking letters or lurid anecdotes. They've been for the most boring documents imaginable. FBI interview memos, witness statements, internal deliberations, the records that show who said what, when, and how investigators evaluated credibility. Those documents don't trend on social media, but they determine truth. They are the difference between rumor and record. And yet, those are precisely the materials that remain absent, delayed, or shielded behind vague explanations. Instead, the public is offered fragments that provoke outrage without resolution. Enough to inflame, not enough to conclude. This is where the story stops being about Epstein and starts being about American power itself. Because the most dangerous thing for an institution is not scandal, it's clarity. Clear records create responsibility. Responsibility creates consequences. And consequences are what the system is structurally designed to avoid when powerful people are involved. So instead, what we get is compliance theater. Files are released just before deadlines. Just enough to say the law was followed, just enough to claim good faith. But not enough to allow an ordinary citizen to reconstruct the full picture. Not enough to trace cause and effect. Not enough to answer the one question that matters most. Who knew? And who was protected? In this environment, even small technical choices carry enormous political weight. Renumbering documents may sound trivial. It isn't. When numbers change, citations break. When citations break, past reporting becomes contestable. When reporting becomes contestable, attention shifts from accountability to argument. The story becomes about process confusion instead of substance. That's how power survives scrutiny without ever openly defying it. Another uncomfortable reality rarely discussed is the issue of record authority. When documents appear briefly and then vanish, or return in altered form, the public loses confidence in which version is real. And once official records are perceived as unstable, trust collapses. This is not just a communications failure, it's an institutional one. A democratic system depends on shared agreement about what counts as evidence. When that agreement erodes, people don't stop believing, they simply choose sides. Evidence becomes tribal, facts become optional, and the state loses its ability to anchor reality. This is why the public reaction has been so volatile. We are no longer in a high-trust era. Administrative ambiguity no longer reads as harmless error. It reads as intent. When trust is low, every redaction looks like a cover-up. Every delay looks like obstruction, and every explanation sounds like an excuse. That doesn't mean every suspicion is true, but it does mean the system has lost the benefit of the doubt. And that loss didn't happen overnight. It happened because for decades, Americans have watched powerful figures escape consequences through technicalities, settlements, sealed records, and quiet procedural exits. They've learned, correctly or not, that the system rarely punishes the people at the top. So when another scandal emerges, the assumption isn't innocence, it's insulation, and that assumption shapes everything. Even the moral language of victim protection, which is absolutely necessary, becomes politically volatile in this context. Protecting victims is non-negotiable, but when that protection is paired with selective opacity, creates a moral shield behind which reputational protection can hide. A serious system doesn't just say, "We redacted to protect victims." It shows how redactions are applied, who reviews them, and how abuse of that justification is prevented. It creates independent oversight. It draws clear lines. Without that, moral language becomes a political instrument. The conflict between Congress and the executive branch only deepens the crisis. On paper, Congress has the authority to demand compliance. In reality, enforcement is slow, messy, and often dependent on the very institutions under scrutiny. That creates a structural imbalance where delay itself becomes a strategy. Every week that passes reduces public attention. Every holiday interrupts momentum. Every new crisis competes for oxygen. And eventually, even legitimate demands start to sound like background noise. This isn't corruption in the cinematic sense. It's inertia weaponized. What makes this moment different is not the documents themselves, it's the timing. The public's tolerance for institutional ambiguity is collapsing. People no longer accept "trust us" as an answer. They want to see the mechanism. They want to see how decisions are made, not just what decisions were announced. And when they don't see that, they assume the worst. The media, unfortunately, often misses this deeper story. Too much coverage chases names and shock value. Too little explains systems. But systems are where the truth actually lives. A democracy doesn't fail when it lacks information. It fails when it cannot process information into shared understanding. When every revelation produces more heat than light, the result is permanent instability. That instability benefits power, because a confused public cannot coordinate. It cannot hold anyone accountable. It can only argue endlessly over fragments. This is the danger of document dumps without structure. They don't inform, they exhaust. Real accountability would look very different. It would look boring. It would involve standardized indexing, consistent references, clear explanations of what can and cannot be released, and independent review mechanisms that the public can trust. It would prioritize coherence over spectacle. And above all, it would focus on the evidentiary backbone of the case, not the viral edges. The tragedy of the Epstein story is not just what happened. It's what the response reveals about the state itself. A system that cannot tell the truth clearly is a system that fears the consequences of clarity. And until that changes, every future scandal will follow the same pattern. Partial release, public outrage, endless debate, no closure. That's not transparency, that's management. And the longer Americans are forced to navigate power through fog instead of facts, the more fragile legitimacy becomes. This is why this moment matters. Not because of one figure or one network or one political party, but because it exposes a deeper question about governance in the information age. Can American power still be made legible to the people it claims to serve? Or has transparency itself become just another performance, carefully staged to look open while remaining fundamentally closed? That's the question hanging over this entire episode, and it's the question Washington keeps trying to avoid. Seeing America and power more clearly. So let me ask you directly, if the most important records are always the last ones released, do you believe we're being prepared for accountability or trained to live permanently inside fragments?